day.
Yes, we are. And so excited to have Lori with me today. Lori is a fellow health coach who's passionate about helping women and men age better and feel better in the skin they're in. So we're on the same page. And we are both over 50. Actually, I'm over 60. So, but that's okay.
Over 60.
Oh,
yes,
you're sweet.
I'm over 50.
But and you as well. You look wonderful. So but we want to really talk about something important today that a lot of women struggle with when they hit a certain age. Usually, like can start in perimenopause, and really rear its ugly head as we get older, and that is belly fat. Mm-hmm. Belly fat is not where it's at. So we don't want the belly fat. And why do we get it? And why do we have issues with it? So there's reasons why. And that's because our hormones are starting to get imbalanced. Largely it's caused by hormone imbalance. And when our insulin levels get spiked and on a roller coaster, our insulin levels are high, and then our estrogen levels get low, that's when the fat starts to shift. It shifts from our hips, our legs and our buttocks to, guess where? Our belly. So it's not fair.
No.
but so, and the abdomen is really kind of the epicenter for inflammation. So it's really inflammation, that's causing that. So, but don't despair. There are things we can do, and we'll talk about that as well. But I think, and Lori's going to talk about another hormone that is a big other reasons that we can also get the belly fat besides. And I want to say the insulin levels, when those insulin levels get out of whack and when they're spiking, that's because we're eating high glycemic foods, lots of sugar, processed foods, flour, and foods that are going to keep our, to spike it. And then our insulin levels get out of whack. So that's what I want to say mostly about the insulin and the estrogen, that imbalance there. So Lori, would you like to talk about the next important one?
Oh, yes. And we all know that, especially the last 2 years, we've all been under a lot of stress. And we all sometimes don't feel it, but our bodies do. And our bodies secrete a hormone called cortisol. How many of you have heard of that before? I mean, all the time, right? So we need cortisol. It's something that we produce in our own bodies, but sometimes our cortisol levels can get way too high. And one of the things that cortisol does is it stores fat. Thanks, cortisol. We didn't want you to do that, but that's what it does. And so even when you don't feel like you're under a lot of stress, if your body is feeling that, if your cortisol levels are out of whack, just like we talked about, estrogen being one that's, in our insulin, it can be one that you can have monitored as well to see what's happening in your body. And another thing that can contribute to belly fat is you're not sleeping. And when we start to come into these decades of life, our sleep gets interrupted for different reasons than when we were younger. I mean, for myself, when I was younger, and I know, Kim, you have kids, that's why our sleep was interrupted. But as we age, the same thing happens. We kind of go back to that same interrupted sleep, and we have to figure out why. And a lot of times it's all about our hormones. And so when we aren't sleeping well, when we have interrupted sleep, or we're not getting good quality sleep, that can also increase our cortisol level. Our blood sugar doesn't want to cooperate as well while we're sleeping. So these are also additional things that can contribute to the belly fat that you acquire over time.
Yes.
Not just food.
Right. Well, yeah, that's one of the biggest markers.
Yes.
And let's talk about how you know if you're at risk for having belly fat, because we talked about that, or the measurements that you can do.
The best thing to do without, if it's something you're concerned about before you go to talk to your physician, is to measure your waist circumference. And for ladies, it's take 2 fingers above your belly button and measure that spot. If it's more than 35 inches or more, then you are basically at an at-risk level, and should talk to your doctor about some ways. I mean, we're talking about reducing stress. That's something that you can do, but we'll go into a little bit of what you can do to help do that. And I believe for the gentleman, it's over 40, and that's just right at the belly button area for the men.
Yep. So it's real,
40 inches, sorry, over
40 inches. Yeah. Over 40 inches. So what are causes of belly fat? So I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
So food is one of the main drivers. And what kind of foods? It's foods that cause inflammation to our guts. And foods that cause inflammation are some dairy, if you're lactose intolerant, and also gluten. Gluten can also cause issues. Alcohol is a big endocrine disruptor. That's a hard word to say. And but that's one that can definitely cause that affects our cortisol, and our cortisol is not happy.
It's a toxin in our body. It really truly is. As much as we like to have a cocktail here and there, and again, having it once in a while. I mean, we're not here to say you can't ever drink again. I mean, obviously, if you have an issue with alcohol, then you don't want to do that. But if you're struggling, here's the thing: if you're struggling with an area of your health and you are someone that drinks alcohol on a regular basis, that might be something that you want to kind of reel in and check. And by eliminating it or lessening the amount of times that you have alcohol during the week or whatever, or the type of alcohol that you have, that can also play a role. I mean, wine is very high in sugar. So it's all going to affect your overall health. And then, you know, if we're talking about belly fat, it's going to help settle it right where you don't want it.
Good explanation, Lori. And another thing is caffeine is also, if you consuming too much caffeine. Right. I know if you're dependent on caffeine, that's kind of another thing that you maybe need to address. But having some caffeine in the morning, I know many people like to have their morning coffee, but just being aware not to overdo it. If you are having belly fat, though, if you can reduce your caffeine to like 1 cup and finish before 10 a.m., that's going to help you sleep better too. And but I feel like the main thing is to take care of your gut health, because the health of your gut is what determines the state of what your hormones do in your body, because your hormones are little messengers that go off from your gut to every part in your body to do what they need to do, which is hopefully the work and be in homeostasis and do what they're supposed to do. But when they're not working well because they're not being fed the right nutrition, then that's when we have issues with inflammation and then the belly fat issues in people. And because I've heard this before, I have women coming up to me and saying, I haven't changed my diet and all of a sudden I'm gaining this weight. Well, there's a reason for it. It's what it's addressed. Yeah, there's a reason. That's what you're eating, and that's what you need to change and focus on. So anyway, anything else, Lori?
The only thing I wanted to say too, is we talked about it real briefly, is fitness. I mean, a lot of people, also women, think they'll come to me. I also own a fitness center and say, okay, I want to get rid of this middle, and I've been doing exercises at home and it's not going away. Well, that should also be a clue. If you're doing exercises like that, we can't spot train an area. Yes, you can make those muscles stronger by working them, but it's not going to get rid of that fat because there's something else going on that's preventing that from happening. Spot training doesn't really work in that sense. It's always something else underlying. And that's kind of like what Kim and I do. We try to help people get to that basic level, that the basement, and go, okay, what's going on? And are you sleeping well? And, exercise for a lot of people is easy, and some people it's not. But, going back to caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours. And if you're drinking part of the day and you don't metabolize caffeine well, it's going to affect your sleep. And then your cortisol is going to be up and your blood sugar. So you see the cycle real quickly. And so then we think, okay, I'm just going to go to the gym and work really hard on getting rid of that middle. And you're not addressing the things that are actually hurting you. The other thing too, one real quickly, I know this is a 7-minute talk.
You know what? Robin is the one that usually times it, and I forgot.
You picked the wrong person for 7 minutes.
No, I picked the best person.
Oh gosh, now I forgot what I was going to say. Another thing that memory.
So we were joking earlier. Lori and I were talking earlier, like, you know how you cannot out exercise a bad diet. You can't out crunch a big belly. So you can't do a ton of crunches and think I'm going to get rid of my belly. So it is what you put in your mouth. It's what you
you will strengthen your core for sure. And that's a good thing, but it will not eliminate that area if you're not addressing all the other things that we've mentioned.
Right, exactly. So anyway, well, thank you, Lori. I think this is, I think we could talk way longer about belly fat, because it's a big issue, but really getting to the core of, no pun intended, of getting to the core of taking care of your gut health is paramount, because that, and I say diets aren't the way to go. Don't go on a diet. just take care of your gut health, and then you're going to feel better, and health will follow. So
I remembered what I was going to say.
okay, so why don't you go ahead and say it?
Is that even if you do eat healthy, so I would say for me, I could say I eat healthy, but I could still have sensitivities to certain foods like spinach, which is a really healthy food. But if my body doesn't like spinach, it doesn't metabolize it, if it doesn't break it down properly, it can cause inflammation and do the very same things that those unhealthy foods that we tend to really love to eat, like the brownies and the cookies and the cake and the ice cream and the alcohol. It can also do similar things to your gut to prevent you from absorbing the nutrients that it needs. And that's another reason why we just kind of carry all these things around with us. So there are things that you can do. So please don't feel like I have this belly fat and I'm just going to give up. There are things you can do. Heal that gut first, and then all those other things, I believe personally, will fall in line.
Well, I believe it too, because you and I have both done it.
Yeah, we have.
We've healed our guts, so
Yeah.
we can. It's possible at no matter what age you are. So
Right.
anyway, thank you so much, my friend. It was so nice to see you.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a lot fun having you, and we'll have to do it again. So
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
yeah, and thanks everyone, and we will see you next week. Hopefully Robin will be back, and I'll see you then. All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay, I stopped it, and now I got to stop the recording, which I can.
It's still recording. There you go. Nope, still recording.
Oh my gosh, come on now. Are you wanting to record? Yes.